What's going on YouTube? OCD for EDC here. And what I got for your face balls today is this little guy right here. This happens to be the Justin Lundquist Baby Barlow. And this was generously loaned to me by one of my viewers. His name is David and he goes by DLBY3 on the Instagrams. And yeah, he let me check this little knife out, and it's an interesting one, that's for sure. But let's get into it here. We're going to do a few size comparisons just to start things off, and we'll start out with the Spyderco Para 3 lightweight. So I'm going to line the pivots up. So as you can see, we definitely have got a small little knife. Here it is against the Giant Mouse Ace Clyde. And let's see what else I got laying around here. Here it is against the Hogue Deca. And yeah, get some of that. There it is against the Boker Kalishnikov clip point. So I think that about does it for size comparisons. As you can see, we're talking about a really small little knife. So what we're looking at here is an overall length of just barely over 5 inches. It actually, this particular one measures 5.018 inches. You got a handle length of 2.935. You got a blade length of 2.08. You got a handle thickness right here of 435 thousandths, or just a little bit under a half of an inch, and that does stay pretty consistent throughout. Got a blade stock thickness of 98 thousandths, so we do have a nice little thin blade here. And we got a behind the edge thickness that stays really consistent all the way around until you get right out to the very tip. It's 21 thousandths all the way across here. Like I said, about this much of it here right on the very tip is a little thicker than that. It's about 26 or 27 thousandths. So let me grab a scale here, get a weight on this guy. So we've got 2 inches of blade, and for your 2 inches of blade you have got 2.223 ounces. So your little baby Barlow is, full titanium construction, so definitely, could have been lighter, but although it does feel a little bit, like it's not even 2.5 ounces, so it's still really light. But for its size, you can tell that it's pretty dense. It does have a little bit of heft to it for how small this thing is. So you can see right here on the top, you can see the jimping going on there. You've got like 4 jimps across the top, and that is, I guess you'd call it a top flipper, but action on it, it's a really, really snappy little blade. And then it is a liner lock. So the blade tucks completely into the handle, except for you have just this little part right here that it has a rounded or a crowned spine, and you've got about that much of it sticks out of the scales, just enough that you can feel it. So like I said, the action on it's pretty good. Detent is adequate for this little knife. You do have this nail nick here, which I'm assuming that they're just trying to stay true to the traditional Barlow design, because the nail nick serves zero purpose, and it is on both sides. But you can see there, as the blade is closed, the nail nick hides completely within the handle. So you can also see the detent here. I'll let it suck it back in. Right there. So you have this integrated pocket clip. It is a milled titanium clip, and you can see the hardware underneath the clip. So from the exterior, it is a hidden hardware clip, which is kind of nice. And then this one here has got, they do offer this in a few different configurations. This one here has got black G10 around the the pivot, like a pivot collar, I guess, if you will, and it does have these three little lines there, which I guess add some traction. If you're going to hold it in like a pinch grip or something like this kind of a situation. But, it's a really, really small little knife. So, I guess, this kind of a grip, really the pocket clip to me adds the most amount of purchase. You can really grab a hold of and hold on to the clip. So, this knife is obviously not something you're doing any sort of hard tasks with. However, like I said, it is titanium frame, and you do have M390 blade steel. I'm not sure who actually manufactured this knife, but it's well constructed. Some of the design elements leave a little bit to be desired, which we'll talk about that here in a minute. But, certainly the construction on it is pretty well done. You can see you've got a pretty nice stone wash finish all over the titanium here. And the blade actually matches the handle scales pretty well. The finish on it, you got this just kind of grayed out stone wash finish. You got a non-tooled pivot on the show side, and then you've got this little, I'm not really sure why they did this. It would have, to me, it would have looked nicer had they done non-tooled back here on this back screw, at least on the show side, but they chose not to. So you do have a T6 Torx back here in the rear. So it is just a 2-screw construction to get the knife apart, which we are going to do right now. So we'll take this guy apart and see how this thing's put together. So it is a T8 for the pivot. And pivot screw has got very tiny threads there. And then you've got, like I said, T6. Oh yeah, no Loctite, or at least didn't feel like any on the back there. So let's lift this guy off. All right. So you can see right there on the inside it says Justin Lundquist. So that's the designer's name. And you can see that there are some divots there, but I'm assuming that's just for fixturing purposes. It's not like they really did any weight relieving. And so you can see the 2 screws there that hold the pocket clip in, as well as, so the 2 screws under the pocket clip are for the liner. And like I said, it is a liner lock. You can see the liner there. If you can see there, the liner does not stick proud of the scales. So, if anything, it actually sits down inside a little bit. So for me and my fat ass fingers, I actually have to kind of use my fingernail to get down in there to release the liner. Whoa. Those have to be the smallest, cutest bearings I have ever seen. So that's kind of interesting. Those things are like the size, if anyone's familiar with the size of the washers in the Akuchi, they're real tiny like this. So it does look like ceramic ball bearings, which is nice. You can see you got a little bearing pocket milled out. You got an internal stop pin. And again, you've got these same 2 holes, which, like I said, I'm sure is for fixturing when they're machining these parts. Otherwise, this is just a solid slab of titanium. You got the 1 standoff here in the rear. And then you've got a little bit of providing access to get into that lock bar. So pretty straightforward, pretty simple construction. The bearings here, like I said, they are ceramic. And you've got brass cages there. Just to get an idea, just want to get an OD dimension on these bearings. Yeah, just over 1/4 of an inch. Just kind of interesting. I don't even know if I can get the ID. Actually, let's do this. We'll get the OD of the pivot. Yeah, 117 thousandths. That's the OD, or outer diameter, of the actual pivot. So, like I said, definitely not a hard use knife. Just a tiny little guy. And, I don't know who manufactured this knife, but the construction on it is really well done. But a few of the design elements are kind of interesting. So one being the access to the lock bar there. You know, you just you can't really get in there. I'm just wiping up any junk that's in here. But the access to the lock bar is not great. You can see we do have a steel detent ball there. And looks like they polished the where the bearings sit on this one side here, as well as the detent path. So that's really nice. There is no detent ramp, but they did do the polishing, which is nice. So one of my complaints about this knife is certainly the access to the lock bar is not stellar. I'm going to, when I put this back together, I'm going to throw just a little dab of KPL in here. So the action on this thing was really nice. The blade was centered, and if you can see, you've got that crown spine right there. However, one of the things that I noticed about this blade, if you look, you can see that the secondary bevel on here is not real uniform or it's offset ground. On one side, the secondary grind is about double the size of the other side. So, it's a minor thing and certainly could be fixed, but something when you're spending this kind of money on a knife, that's one thing we haven't discussed yet is the price. This thing is pretty spendy for what it is. So for this tiny little knife here, I've seen it when this thing first came out. Let me back up here a moment. When this thing first came out, I'm pretty sure that it was only available through Urban EDC Supply, if you guys are familiar with that. But since then, I have actually seen this knife on Blade HQ. I'm pretty sure has it for sale these days. And for this exact model that you're looking at right here, this knife sells for $235, which by my standards, that's a lot of money for a knife like this. I like it. It's interesting, and it is well built. But really, that's just a lot of money for what this thing is. It does fit pretty well in like your coin pocket or your fifth pocket, which is nice, and it's an interesting little carry. It's fun to fidget with because the action on it's so good, and that part's great. But for $235, yeah, I don't know. That's kind of a hard pill to swallow for me. If for you, if it's worth it for you, then I would say, go for it. It's I've not seen anything else out there like it. So let's see here. Blade centering is right on. Action is still snappy just like it was. Excellent. Yeah. You have zero blade play. So, it's it's well done, but you can see right there, in order for me, I can't get I guess I can get, if I shove my thumb in there really, really hard, I can get the fat on my thumb to squeeze in there enough to push that lock bar over, but otherwise I have to use my index finger and use my fingernail. So you can see there from the side that lock bar just disappears because it's actually sits down inside there a little bit. The other thing I noticed, I did carry this around a few times, and like I said, it works well in like the fifth pocket or coin pocket. However, the clip, goes in the pocket really well. It's got good retention. It's kind of sharp around the front edges on the clip. It's nothing that would cut you or anything like that, but I just always seem to like scrape my arm or my hand on it constantly. and that was less than ideal. Like, again, it's not going to cut you, it's just kind of uncomfortable. So although the pocket clip does work really well, I feel like this top edge, they needed to kind of chamfer all of those, that outer edge there all the way around, and that would certainly make it a little bit nicer. But the geometry on it's good. You know, the for being a top flipper, the thing just rockets out there, and that part's great. So, you know, if I would think for someone that's got smaller hands than I do, you know, this thing works pretty well. And, you know, if you're interested in a, you know, high end materials, quality little fifth pocket knife like this, I don't think it's a horrible choice. It's not really for me, but you know, to each their own. I certainly I get it. And you know, I do appreciate it. I think it's kind of an interesting little design, and I do like the way it looks. So the aesthetics of it are pretty cool. So anyway, that's about all I've got here for your face balls. But the Lundquist Baby Barlow, it's kind of an interesting thing, and I certainly appreciate David passing it along to me so I can take a look at it. I've enjoyed, I've enjoyed messing around with it. That's for sure. So, all right, guys, I will catch you next time. Have a good night.